Former President Trump's impeachment is now in the hands of the Senate. Republican Senator Rand Paul called it a travesty and called it the Democrats' quote, partisan vendetta against a man no longer in office. Trump, meanwhile, is opening up an office of the former president. This comes as he distances himself from the Patriotic Party. And growing concerns of the First Amendment rights disappearing under big tech censorship. This comes as Twitter rolls out a new feature for crowdsourced fact-checkers. Tune in to Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. An update on Trump's impeachment case. It's now in the Senate's hands. The House delivered the article of impeachment on Monday. President Biden told CNN the impeachment trial has to happen, but he doesn't think Trump will be convicted. Democrats are accusing Trump of inciting insurrection in a speech to his supporters on January 6th, before the attack on the Capitol took place. There were incidents of violence towards law enforcement officers. The FBI and DOJ have opened at least 200 cases in connection with the breach. Dozens of subsequent arrests indicate that different groups were involved, not all of them Trump supporters. Trump left office on January 20th. Democrats hold 50 seats in the Senate. They would need all 50 votes plus 17 Republican senators to join them to vote to convict Trump. 10 House Republicans joined House Democrats on the vote to impeach the president earlier this month. Around 30 Republican senators have expressed opposition to the impeachment trial, either disagreeing with the charge or the impeachment of Trump after he's already left office. Senator Rand Paul calls it an unconstitutional sham and says he will force a vote on whether the Senate can hold a trial of a private citizen. If Trump is convicted, senators could choose to disqualify him from ever holding office in the future. No president in U.S. history has ever been convicted. The Senate's longest-serving Democrat and President pro tempore Patrick Leahy said Monday he will preside over the trial. He'll also serve as juror along with all other senators. The U.S. Constitution states the Supreme Court's Chief Justice shall preside when the President of the United States is tried in an impeachment trial. But since Trump is no longer president, Chief Justice John Roberts had the option to turn down the role. Schumer said on MSNBC that Roberts has chosen not to preside over the impeachment. That puts Leahy next in line. The Supreme Court has not responded to requests for comment. Leahy said he will not waver from his constitutional and sworn obligations to administer the trial with fairness. And Senator Rand Paul, meanwhile, says unity is the opposite of this travesty we are about to witness. He said about the impeachment, if we are about to try to impeach a president, where is the Chief Justice? If the accused is no longer in office, where's the constitutional power to impeach him? Pointing out that private citizens don't get impeached. Impeachment is for removal from office, and the accused here, Trump, has already left office. He said Democrats are wasting the nation's time on a partisan vendetta against a man no longer in office. Trump's campaign, meanwhile, is distancing itself from the newly formed political committee called the MAGA Patriot Party. The MAGA Patriot National Committee was filed with the Federal Election Commission. A man named James Davis of Punta Gorda, Florida, was listed as the committee's treasurer. But Trump's team says it didn't authorize the filing, adding it has no knowledge of the party's activities and hasn't entered any joint fundraising agreements with it. The Donald J. Trump for President Committee says it disavows the activities of a committee named Patriot Party. It makes clear there's no affiliation between them and that the party was not authorized by Trump or the team. Instead, Trump is opening an office of the former president in Palm Beach County, Florida. The move comes amid questions on how Trump will get involved in politics after leaving office. A statement from the office explains it will manage Trump's correspondence, public statements, appearances, and official activities. The office aims to advance the interests of the U.S. and to, quote, carry on the agenda of the Trump administration through advocacy, organizing, and public activism. Since Twitter and a slew of platforms banned Trump, his supporters have also been under increased scrutiny. The latest is MyPillow founder and CEO Mike Lindell. Twitter has suspended his account. Users see the blank page of a suspended account if they go to his page. Some users also saw the message, "You are trying to follow a user that doesn't exist." If they try to view his Twitter page, Lindell's personal Twitter account had over 500,000 followers. Twitter accuses Lindell of violating the platform's policies. Twitter pointed to its policies on election interference that say no one can use its services to spread information that the service views as misleading to the civic process. Lindell is a supporter of Donald Trump. He often posted political commentary that sometimes questioned the results of the election. The suspension of Lindell's Twitter account is the latest in actions taken against Trump and his supporters since the January 6th breach of the U.S. Capitol. Twitter, meanwhile, has launched a new crowdsourced anti-misinformation approach on its platform. It's called Birdwatch. People who want to join can sign up and see if they make the cut. Right-wing conservative YouTuber Mark Deist tried signing up and didn't get approved. Twitter says the goal is to have a community-driven approach. In the announcement, the goal is to have people sign up and add notes. The platform will then use those notes and feedback to, quote, help shape this program and learn how to reach our goal of letting the Twitter community decide when and what context is added to a tweet. When some people pointed out it seems wild to have random people monitor other random people, Twitter pointed to academic research showing the benefits of crowdsourcing approaches to fight misinformation. Twitter said in its defense, many people feel context on tweets would be more impactful if it came from the community rather than Twitter or any singular institution. It's similar to what's mentioned in a book called The Starfish and the Spider: The Unstoppable Power of Leaderless Organizations. The book uses the starfish and spider as metaphors for two different kinds of organizations. The spider represents the centralized, the head controls the legs, while the starfish represents the decentralized. It doesn't have a head, and if an arm is cut off, it'll just grow another and keep going. Examples of starfish or decentralized organizations include Skype, Wikipedia, Craigslist, the Burning Man Festival. Decentralized organizations are held together by ideology. The author writes, ideology is the glue that holds decentralized organizations together. The book says the point of decentralized systems is they're unstoppable. The more decentralized it is, the more unstoppable it is. Author Ori Braffman writes, this is the first major principle of decentralization. When attacked, a decentralized organization tends to become even more open and decentralized. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey has suggested an open, decentralized standard for social media, citing an announcement from 2019 when the company announced it was funding a small team, Blue Sky, to create such a standard. It's interesting that Dorsey would push for an alternative platform to his own company. While there are strong advocates for the new feature, others are drawing parallels between the new Birdwatch feature and the dystopian novel 1984. Some saying the logo looks similar to the eye from the Orwellian novel, suggesting that Big Brother is watching. Representative Dan Bishop said Twitter turns liberals into army of censors, feeling very 1984, while the GOP House Judiciary questioned if Twitter would use the new feature fairly. Frederick Douglass, the American abolitionist, once said, liberty is meaningless where the right to utter one's thoughts and opinions has ceased to exist. Director and founder of Citizens for Free Speech, Patrick Wood, told the Epoch Times, First Amendment rights are disappearing under the increased censorship by big tech. He believes there is an agenda behind the censorship. He said in the interview it would be almost statistically impossible to attack simultaneously all 5 elements of the First Amendment: freedom of religion, free speech, freedom of the press, the right to assemble, and the right to petition the government for redress of grievances. But that's changed. He said all 5 of those have been shattered to pieces in the last year, and the attack had started actually before that, probably 5 or 6 years ago. He added free speech is hanging by a thread, and the First Amendment is hanging by a thread. He alleges the big tech companies colluded together to take down Parler in one day under the pretext of violating their policies. He said the move was unprecedented. Apple and Google removed the social media platform Parler from their app stores, and Amazon Web Services took the site down due to alleged violations. As for Parler, the company sued Amazon, saying it had no evidence for its allegations. A federal judge last week denied Parler's request for Amazon Web Services to continue hosting it. The judge said Parler failed to meet the standard for the issuance of a preliminary injunction, but noted in the court order, to be clear, the court is not dismissing Parler's substantive underlying claims at this time, saying Parler had failed to demonstrate that it has raised serious questions going to the merits of its claims, or that the balance of hardships tips sharply in its favor. Parler had alleged Amazon's move was politically motivated, saying AWS's decision to suspend Parler's account is apparently motivated by political animus. It is also apparently designed to reduce competition in the microblogging services market to the benefit of Twitter. Amazon, meanwhile, said the case is not about stifling free speech, but rather that Parler failed to remove content that threatens the public safety. The case against AWS is still ongoing. Parler CEO Meier has said his site will be back by the end of the month. On the issue of big tech, 17 freshman Republicans congratulated Biden on his presidency and then asked him to work on enforcing antitrust laws against tech monopolies. They asked to work together on shared topics, including coronavirus relief for families and businesses, protecting Americans with pre-existing conditions, strengthening and modernizing our infrastructure, enforcing our antitrust laws against emboldened technology monopolies, and restoring our economy struggling in the aftermath of the coronavirus pandemic. They called for unity, saying it is clear that the partisan divide between Democrats and Republicans does not serve a single American, citing the 2 impeachments and the Capitol breach. And a bipartisan group of 16 senators is challenging Biden's $1.9 trillion pandemic relief plan. They say it doesn't focus enough on low-income families. The Biden administration proposed a $1.9 trillion package, including a one-time payment of $1,400 to Americans, a minimum wage increase to $15 per hour, an extension of unemployment benefits through September, $20 billion for vaccine distribution enhancement, an earned income tax credit and child tax credit extension, and $350 billion in extra funding for state and local governments. The senators say they are skeptical how another round of stimulus checks will revitalize the economy, while others question why Biden's proposal would provide relief to families with an income of over $300,000. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and see you soon.